Yes, indeed. This is our lesson for today, cholesterol. We're going to talk all things cholesterol, but let's get into it. What the heck is it? Let's start with the beginning. Let's start with the definition. What is cholesterol? Well, cholesterol is fats. They're lipids, or sterols, they're called. And that's what they look like. Little bundles of hydrogen and oxygen and carbon, with one end being hydrophilic, meaning it attracts water, and the other being hydrophobic. It repels water. Why is that important? Why is it good? Well, because it makes our cell walls happen. It allows our cell walls to keep the surrounding liquid out and keep the internal liquids of other cells in. Every cell in your body is comprised in large part of cholesterol. But yeah, you actually do need it. It's not a bad thing inherently. You need to have cholesterol in your diet and in your body. So these hydrophobic ends and hydrophilic ends, they help to keep the external environment external and the internal environment, well, internal. Helps to maintain our structure, gives us some rigidity in those cells. And that rigidity can be altered. It can be regulated, fluctuated to allow things in or out that we need. Allow nutrients in, allow toxins and such out. Yes, Aniki, if I'm saying that right. I'm saying it like the word for brother in Japanese. I don't know if that's correct.
Oh, it's Annika. And
Annika, okay.
That's actually my wife in chat right now.
Oh, okay. I was like, Aniki. That's the Japanese word for brother. But yes, keeps the external environment out, the internal environment in. And yes, it is like the Wii that the extra gaming copper. Yeah. I've actually used that when I've done some health and fitness stuff for senior centers. We actually use Wii U's and Wii's to get people up and moving. They actually like it quite a bit, especially bowling. But yes, cholesterol is also important in cell signaling. Molecules that are sent out from cell to cell are encased in fats, in these cholesterols, to protect them as they make their journey, in some cases, to the other place in the body that they need to get. Cholesterol is also a precursor to a lot of hormones. All of these, in fact. Cholesterol is an ingredient or a precursor in all of these other hormones that you're seeing. Aldosterone, progesterone, estrone, estradiol, DHT, cortisol. The virgin cholesterol signaling versus the Chad exosome. I like it. I like it.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, we're going to be keeping that joke. Now, don't worry, that we're a casual classroom, even though we do things a little differently here, and I do have this sort of feels more like a real virtual classroom. It's still pretty relaxed, so don't worry about off-topic stuff. You're perfectly fine. Cholesterol is also important for helping to make bile, which is involved in digesting of fats. And in making blood clots, which is important. So where do we get our cholesterol? Is it just from the food we eat? Well, no. 80% of it is endogenous, or it's made by the body. It's made within our own body. So most of it is internal. We get 20% of it from food. Of course, unfortunately, sometimes we get more than we need from food. But all of the cholesterol that we get from our food is animal-based. Plant foods don't contain cholesterol. Animal foods do, because their cell walls are made of cholesterols. Plants, though, do have something called phytosterols, which are similar enough to cholesterol that they can mimic it. Very close in chemical structure, like you see here. Just a little bit of a difference on one end. See the cholesterol molecule there, spinning around. There are different types of cholesterol. Cholesterol primarily comes in two flavors, so to speak. There's LDL, which are low-density lipoproteins, and there's HDL, high-density lipoproteins. Now, for some people, they get these confused because they think, well, high density would be worse, right? There's more compact. Actually, the opposite. High density lipoprotein, or HDL, actually scavenges your excess cholesterol, sort of soaks it up. So that's considered the quote unquote good cholesterol. Low density lipoprotein, or LDL, it actually has its use too. It helps deliver cholesterol throughout the body, and like we said, we do need cholesterol. But we often have too much of it, and it's considered to be the quote unquote bad cholesterol. Let's talk a little bit now about, well, what can too much or too little do, Riko?
Well, yeah. So, what can too much or too little cholesterol do to the body? So, unchecked, too much cholesterol in the body, otherwise known as hypercholesterolemia, I know that's quite a mouthful, can lead to serious health issues. On the other end of the spectrum, insufficient LDL cholesterol, or otherwise known as hypocholesterolemia, is usually rooted in underlying issues and not in lifestyle choices. So just keep in mind that your body is not a vacuum. All these systems interplay with each other in order to create, a working body. So when we talk about treating or taking care of somebody who has these issues, our first step is always going to be prevention, if we can help it. Because, like the saying says, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure. Because unfortunately, once you are afflicted with any of these conditions, they will usually last for the rest of your life. So if you can, try to do your best to make sure it doesn't happen in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. If we can get Riko and I think we will both shrink ourselves a little bit so we can see the slides.
Oh, yeah, yes, of course.
And Copper asks if exotic butters have cholesterol. Well, it depends on, like I said, animal products like butter and milk. They, of course, have cholesterol because they're animal products. Butters that are made from plant sources may or may not have cholesterol. Plants themselves won't, but they might have cholesterols added. So it is something you just need to check the nutrition facts for. They are less likely to have them because they're not primarily made with animal products, but if it's milk and dairy, if it's genuine milk or dairy butter, then it will have cholesterol. Or made with any other animal product. Exotic butters that are made from goat's milk or whatever, it's still milk. It's still going to have cholesterol. All right, next slide. So what can go wrong with this excess or too little cholesterol?
Too much cholesterol can lead to several things, actually. So there's something called atherosclerosis, hypertension, peripheral artery disease, increased risk of heart disease, and gallstones. Having too little cholesterol can actually lead to steroid hormone imbalances and reduced bile acid production, which can lead to malabsorption of fats and fat-soluble deficiencies, which are needed for your daily function of your body. So to get a bit more in depth, excess cholesterol seep into your arteries and stay stuck between the linings of the artery, which produces plaques and causes narrowing of the blood vessels. When enough of those cholesterol builds up in the arterial wall, it can actually completely stop blood flow in the area most affected. So you know how there's these things called antioxidants in foods, right? So it's not just a fancy term to sell you more product. Antioxidants are actually very important into reducing the amount of reactive oxygen species, or ROS, which are free-floating oxygen molecules in the blood. So the ROSs can actually cause a reaction in the plaque inside those arterial walls, which can cause it to expand and potentially burst the artery. So any limb or organ that is downstream from the blockage won't receive blood flow and can cause ischemia, or cell damage, or organ dysfunction. Having insufficient cholesterol can actually like said before, hormone imbalances, which you've listed before, Teach, you can lead to low levels of cortisol, aldosterone, estrogen, and testosterone. So, without enough of those parts, the product cannot be built. Can't build a PC without getting all the different parts. Can't build a car without the engine, without the assembly. You're gonna need fats in order to do so. So less cholesterol also means less bile acid production. So the liver uses cholesterol to create bile acid, which is used to break down fats during digestion. Without bile acid, fats are poorly absorbed into the body and fat-soluble vitamins. So having the lack of fats can actually lead to clinical deficiencies, including infecting of the vision, bone health, blood clotting, and antioxidant defenses.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we will be talking about some of the more diet stuff a little bit later, but there are certain particular specialty diets that you might be getting a significant reduction in fats. You do need fats, you do need fats for your functions. People will say, well, isn't lower cortisol good? Well, not necessarily. You also do still need cortisol. You still need stress hormones. You still need the things that will help your body to adapt and change. Yes.
Oh yeah. Actually, I'm kind of excited. We actually do have a doctor in chat, Mr. Dr. Sykin MD himself.
Yes. Welcome.
He is. Yes, thank you for coming aboard, Doc. But yeah, it's so other cholesterol also produces nerve sheath, the sheath of the nerves, which help stimulate the nerve conduction signals all across your body.
That's actually a very interesting point. Something I guess that comes up to my mind then is, you mentioned, Dr. Sykin, that you don't like prescribing statins in the geriatric population. I think that's possibly also because there can be more likelihood of nerve damage in the older population, or lower nerve conduction, possibly, if I'm not mistaken. I've done some work with adapted fitness, individuals who have, say, Guillain-Barré or other conditions in which there are nerve conduction problems. But then they also have, high cholesterol, and they get medication. Oh, Alzheimer's. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. We actually talked quite a bit about in previous lessons how we need our younger people to care more about this stuff, because there's so much that we're discovering increases the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia in later years. Lack of sleep. People think, oh, I'm young, I can go without sleep. Chronic lack of sleep increases risk of dementia and memory, cognitive issues, poor breathing practices. So that's why this is important. I was going to make sure to make a point of this. Might have a lot of younger viewers or millennials like myself. This is still important to you to take care of and think about now. Trust me, you're going to be grateful that you did 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Like I told everyone in my college classes, I went in a little bit later into college because I did the military first. And I'm like, y'all are drinking too much, and you're not drinking water, and you're not exercising or stretching, and you're not wearing sunscreen. Trust me, there's a reason I look so good and look so young. It's because, I take care of myself, take care of my skin. But 10 years from now, if you wear sunscreen, if you get good sleep, if you drink more water, you're going to be very grateful to your younger self. So think about this kind of stuff, cholesterol, now, rather than needing a statin later on, rather than needing Dr. Sykin to take care of you. All right, next slide. So let's talk about all the prevalence and incidence of these issues.
Yeah, of course. So about 1 in 10 adults in the United States actually have hypercholesterolemia. In contrast, no more than an average of 3% of people are affected by hypocholesterolemia. So having excess cholesterol is primarily caused by lifestyle choices such as diet, sedentary lifestyle, and obesity, followed by uncontrollable factors such as genetics and age. The lack of cholesterol is much rarer and primarily caused by underlying conditions such as malnutrition, liver disease, or hyperthyroidism, which are much rarer conditions. Much rarer conditions such as, I know this is going to be a bit of a mouthful, abetalipoproteinemia, which is the intestinal malabsorption of fat, or hypobeta-lipoproteinemia, the mutation of the lipoproteins responsible for carrying cholesterol, can cause insufficient cholesterol level. Oh, geez, those are a mouthful, definitely. So, uncontrolled excess cholesterol can lead to various other health problems listed below. So, cholesterol is not the cause of mortality outright, but it is a major contributor. As hypocholesteremia is much rarer and caused by underlying conditions, this particular section will focus more on the effects of excess cholesterol. So, here's some comorbidities coming at you. Atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, which entails coronary artery disease, cerebrovascular disease, and peripheral arterial disease. So, CAD, coronary artery disease, elevated cholesterol levels can, particularly in LDLs, contribute to the buildup of plaque in the coronary arteries, like I discussed before, which increases the risk of angina, which is chest pain, heart attacks, and other coronary events. Strokes, cerebrovascular disease, plaque builds up in the arteries supplying the brain, which can lead to ischemic strokes, or the lack of oxygen going into the brain. And peripheral arterial disease has the same atherosclerotic process and can narrow peripheral arteries, leading to reduced blood flow in the limbs, which may cause pain or mobility issues. Another big comorbidity with high cholesterol is metabolic syndrome. So, hypercholesteremia is one component of metabolic syndrome. It is a cluster of conditions that occur together and elevate the risk for cardiovascular disease. Features include abdominal obesity, hypertension, insulin resistance / hyperglycemia, elevated triglycerides, and low HDL cholesterol. And patients with metabolic syndrome are at higher risk for type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular events.
Very, very serious stuff. And I will make note here that some of you probably know, I've talked about it before. I've actually suffered a stroke. I had a COVID-related cerebellar embolism, a posterior inferior cerebellar artery embolism. And I'm relatively young, relatively healthy. And I mention this because you're maybe young, you may be relatively healthy, but these kinds of things can happen even if you are taking care of yourself. So why take the risk of adding the possibility of it happening from lifestyle factors that you can change, that you can work on? I'm fortunate to be alive. If my roommate hadn't been able to help me get to the hospital, who knows? I mean, I already had to do some physical therapy, occupational therapy to recover. The cerebellum controls a lot of the motor regulation, fine motor control. And that was just because, COVID happened. And it increases inflammation very high, and I had a clot that formed on my heart that went to my brain. Hey, things can happen. Why not take care of the things that you can take care of? Oh, yes. Diabetes. What about diabetes?
Diabetes. The cause of a lot of problems, actually, in my clinic, because I work in outpatient dialysis, and unfortunately, diabetes can affect a lot of our body systems. But in terms of excess cholesterol in general, so with the development of type 2 diabetes, you also get insulin resistance. So many patients with hypercholesteremia exhibit that resistance, which can progress to type 2 diabetes. And the interplay between abnormal lipid metabolism and glucose regulation contributes to increased cardiovascular risk. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease can also develop, in which those fats, which the fats would cover up would basically embed themselves into the liver, and which can progress could progress to non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, and eventually cirrhosis. So, simpler terms, liver failure. And another comorbidity for hypercholesteremia is dyslipidemia. So obesity is often accompanied by an adverse lipid profile. It includes elevated LDLs, triglycerides, and low HDLs. And the interrelationship further elevates cardiovascular risk. So with that, inflammation also becomes associated with obesity because of the available ROSs, the oxidants that are flowing throughout your blood, the increased amounts of sugar, and the fact that because of the lack of blood flow, because of the incurring stiffness and the plaque surrounding the arteries, it will continue to inflame, which can actually exacerbate the dysfunction within the arteries, and makes a worse problem even worse, a bad problem even worse.
Some of these things, though, they are things that are outside of our control. They are, predispositions that people may have.
Yes. So, some people do have a genetic predisposition to excess cholesterol. Age and gender. Cholesterol levels naturally tend to rise with age. Men generally have higher cholesterol levels early in life, while women's risk increases after menopause due to changes in hormone levels. Medications and other substances, certain medications such as steroids can elevate cholesterol levels. Excessive alcohol consumption and smoking can also impact fat metabolism negatively. Hypothyroidism, otherwise known as an underactive thyroid, can lead to reduced rate of cholesterol metabolism and cause cholesterol levels to rise. So it's not being processed, it actually just stays within the blood. Of course, we mentioned diabetes. Insulin resistance can alter the metabolism of lipids or fats, contributing to unfavorable cholesterol profile. And my bread and butter, kidney disease. Chronic kidney issues affect lipid metabolism and are often linked with this lipidemia. So, some other considerations we need to get into when it comes to specific populations. So certain ethnic groups are at higher risk for cholesterol. So those include people of South Asian descent, so people from Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. They have a risk of developing heart disease and have lower levels of the good HDL, the high density lipoprotein. Filipinos, such as myself, Filipino men and women have actually the highest rate of high LDL cholesterol amongst the Asian subgroups compared to anybody else. Hispanic peoples, Mexican Americans, particularly men and women, have the highest prevalence of high LDL cholesterols amongst the major ethnic groups in the United States, followed by Central American men and Puerto Rican women. African Americans, while they're generally have lower total cholesterol levels, they still have a high risk of dying from heart disease. So this group tends to have higher levels of hypertension, obesity, and diabetes, which actually contributes to the overall cardiovascular risk. So even though they do have that lower propensity for lower cholesterol, unfortunately, all the other factors kind of negate that advantage. Other things such as specific genetic backgrounds, such as familial hypercholesteremia. It's an inherited condition caused by very high cholesterol levels, mostly found in people of French Canadian, Jewish, Ashkenazi. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Ashkenazi Jewish, Lebanese or Afrikaner. Fun fact, my wife is Afrikaner. And it's also important to note that while these ethnic groups do show higher risk, individual factors like diet, physical activity, and access to healthcare actually play a tremendous role in determining cholesterol levels overall. So it's not necessarily where you're coming from, it's what you do.
Yes, very important to note the health equity issues. There's one particular group that we don't get as much data on for reasons that are probably kind of obvious. It's that Native American populations will also tend to have cardiovascular issues at high rates, and in large part that is diet related. And from many years of issues like my own family, they received commodity goods, commodity foods from the government. And for many, many generations, as they were receiving these kinds of food aid, the kind of foods they would be receiving from the government would be high-fat canned beef, lard, and flour. And well, what can you do with that? That's just a lot of high-fat, high carbohydrate foods. And so diabetes is often very prevalent among Native American populations. Cardiovascular issues can be very prevalent. And it can be, in large part, the diets that have been brought about, not because those are the traditional diets, but because that's what has been available. And other health equity issues, access to green space, access to parks, access to healthcare costs, stress, financial issues. So even if people have predispositions, they can be from all kinds of different things rather than just genetics. And important to note, you can only control the things you can control. So do what you can to take care of yourself. But you have also some special populations and other considerations.
So, when it comes to considering those social determinants of health, a lot of things do affect those choices that people make. So financial instability rather than stability can contribute to the development of hypercholesteremia through several mechanisms. Chronic stress, which I believe you've covered before, right, Teach?
Yes, we've talked about that.
Yeah. So financial strain can be a significant source of chronic stress, which can lead to elevated cholesterol levels. Stress can also cause the body to release cortisol and adrenaline, hormones that can increase cholesterol production and alter its metabolism. Unhealthy coping behaviors can also lead to hypercholesteremia. Financial stress often triggers unhealthy habits, such as consuming unhealthy foods, gaining weight, smoking, drinking, and reduced activity. And it's unfortunate because that's how people can try to, alleviate the stress throughout their day or during the weekend. I know it's very tempting, but fortunately, having too much of those little things can actually build up more and more. You just mentioned this, Teach, but the limited access to healthcare. The financial strain can result in reduced access to preventative healthcare and medications, actually, and potentially leading to uncontrolled hypercholesteremia. Work-related stress, financial instability often correlates with job insecurity or high-stress work environments, which have been linked to elevated LDLs and lower HDLs. So, having that financial stability, especially if you're someone who lives in the poverty level, most of those populations we're going to see increased blood sugar levels, elevated blood pressure, and higher triglyceride levels. So all these factors combine for a higher risk for developing hypercholesteremia and subsequently an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. So it's important to note that in addressing financial strain and implementing stress management techniques, it may help mitigate these risks in overall cardiovascular health.
Very, very important points to make, especially about the kind of vicious cycle that can happen where chronic stress leads to poor eating habits, less physical activity. Less physical activity leads to more sedentary behavior. More sedentary behavior increases your cortisol, and they continue to feed into each other, and that vicious cycle needs to be broken in some way. So very important stuff to note up as well. And for people who would like to learn more, you've very helpfully put a bunch of references in there. And in fact, I will put these in the description of the video when we get it uploaded to the VOD, so people can just copy those over.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I do cite my sources. I do my research. So I can't say I'm talking out of thin air. So please, it's very important that you consider everything that I've listed below, or listed above me actually, and read up more about what affects health and what goes into health, because it's not just about the human body or like your choices or what the medicines you take. Everything affects health.
All of that stuff, your social issues, all of that stuff, very important stuff. I'm glad you brought that up, because we talk about a lot of these other issues that are involved in health equity and the overlapping rings of neighborhood, community, broader society. And when we say things like do your own research, we mean things like read studies, not articles on Facebook, badly cropped, heavily pixelated memes on Facebook. We mean actually read studies and stuff. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so naturally we're going to be talking about diet first. That seems to be the obvious place to start. We're going to talk about with the standard American diet, the SAD, the SAD, which seems appropriate a name for it.
Yep.
The standard American diet. And you can see a little chart here of how it's changed over the years. In the 1970s, for example, it was about 2,077 calories. And the number of calories isn't necessarily the biggest thing, because it's about the ratio of your calories taken in versus the calories used. But the amount of fats, added fats and oils that you see there has gone up pretty significantly, from about 338 in the 70s to 562 of our calories coming from those. And that's 2010. That's 15 years ago already. Oh my God, we're old. But yes, that's probably about 600 now. A lot more flour and cereal products as well. A lot more of those processed carbohydrates. A lot of processed food. Now, processing can make food safe. I mean, milk is pasteurized, and that's a processing. By the way, raw milk is not safe. I'm not going to, pussyfoot around that issue, since that's been in the news lately. Raw milk is not safe. Please do not drink raw milk. Please
don't. Let it get pasteurized.
It's not like a weird chemical process. It's just, they're literally just heating it up and cooling it down. I mean, I've literally seen people say, well, I mean, raw milk is safe as long as you boil it first. That's pasteurizing. You're boiling it to kill the stuff. Like, oh my God. Anyway, processing can be fine. It can make food safe. It can make them more suitable. We press various seeds to make oil. They can help to preserve foods, make them last longer. Canned foods, that's processing. But we also eat a lot of fast food. And the standard American diet is pretty low in fiber. And the fiber that is in a lot of the foods that we eat is enriched. It's added after the fact to the food. And I mean, you probably know, we don't get enough fresh fruit and vegetable. And we eat a lot of refined sugars. And we get a lot of saturated fats and sodium. And it's generally just higher calorie. For the processed foods, like I said, these can be fine. There's nothing necessarily inherently wrong with a processed food. But there are levels to it. There's minimally processed foods, like Annika mentioned there, flour is processed wheat. Yeah. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. But foods can become more and more processed, like processed meats, sodas, crisps or chips, if you are using the correct English. Cheese curds. I don't know why they're in that picture, but they are. Maybe it's because I live in a place that loves cheese curds. Candy. Heavily processed foods. Heavily processed foods are connected to both higher LDL, the bad cholesterol, and lower HDL, the good cholesterol. The fact that our diet tends to be low fiber, that can lead to reduced cholesterol metabolism, our ability to process and use that cholesterol. The high refined sugars that we get in our diet can cause the liver to make more of the bad cholesterol. And our heavily saturated fat diets, all that high salt content, can increase cholesterol synthesis. Just cholesterol more generally being made more in the body. And as we talked about more at the top, 80% of our cholesterol is endogenous. It is made by the body. But it's not just the diet, obviously. We also tend to have lower physical activity than we did in past eras. And physical activity, it increases the good cholesterol and helps to clear the LDL, the low cholesterol, the bad cholesterol. Physical activity also activates something called triglyceride, or these terms, lipoprotein lipase, something like that. You know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean. Yeah. It helps to soak up or scavenge the triglycerides in the muscles, that excess fat in the muscles. And low levels of LPL are implicated in diabetes that Riko was talking about earlier. That these high cholesterol diets can cause diabetes. But it's actually also being studied for its link to neurological problems later in life, like, for example, Alzheimer's dementia.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, smoking, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on smoking because you know it's bad. I don't need to tell you that over and over. High stress raises cortisol, raises inflammation. Our poor sleep is also correlated with higher HDL and lower LDL, or lower LDL, lower HDL, higher LDL, and excess drinking. And those are all lifestyle issues that we've talked about that you can change. So what is to be done about it? What can we do? Well, we need more soluble fiber. And why? Because it can help soak up those excess cholesterols. What are some good high fiber foods to add into your diet? Things like oatmeal, bananas, apples, and other fresh fruit and vegetables, but bananas and apples particularly are high in fiber. Greens like broccoli and peas, and avocado and various nuts, especially almonds and walnuts. Why? They bind to cholesterol in the gut. They reduce that bad cholesterol's absorption rate. Oh, and Annalisa Keys has gone 7 months with no cigarette. Congratulations, 7 months clean.
Congratulations.
That's a big deal. One of the hardest addictions to deal with. Very powerful stimulant, nicotine is.
Keep going.
Great work. Congrats. Get
Proud of
some
you.
stars for you. We also want to increase those healthy fats. Healthy fats that we can get from things like fish and eggs. Majority of fat in eggs is unsaturated. And I know that the research tends to, or says back and forth sometimes, they used to think it was bad, or just the egg whites were good, or just the yolks were bad. Eggs are in general healthy when consumed in moderation, and they have unsaturated fats. All different kinds of beans are fantastic for healthy sources of fats. And again, hey, avocado and nuts show up on that list. We want to decrease our saturated fats. Things that are like various oils. You can replace those with extra virgin olive oil, which is a little bit better. Seeds are good for less saturated fats. If you're going to eat sweets, darker chocolates tend to have lower saturated fats. And since we touched on dairy a little bit earlier, replacing traditional butter with margarine. You can also change some of that meat-based proteins, which, you know, meats have cholesterol and plants do not. Plant-based proteins like from beans, nuts, wild rice, sprouted bread. The combination of beans and rice, fantastic, gives you a complete protein, all of the amino acids that you need. Mortham asked about what about sardines. Sardines are actually very good. They have a lot of that good fish oil, those omega-3s, which can prevent you from needing to take the supplement. And if you can get your nutrients from foods rather than supplements, all the better. Although we will have our full supplement lesson coming up in the next couple of weeks, I believe. Why do we want to get plant-based proteins? Because we mentioned earlier those plant sterols, the things that help to make the plant's cell walls, they can mimic cholesterol in our body, and they compete in the body with our cholesterol. So that can help reduce the absorption of too much cholesterol in our diet from animal-based proteins. Riko touched on antioxidants and why those are so important. You can get more antioxidant-rich foods like from berries, leafy greens, tomatoes. Tea is a great source of antioxidants. And I mean true berries, like blueberries, cranberries. Because, raspberries aren't actually berries. I don't know if people know that. Strawberries aren't actually berries.
Wait, what? Really?
Yes. They're not genuine berries. They're cluster fruits. They're those little clusters on the berry. There's a specific definition of berry that raspberries don't actually fit in. Bananas are actually technically berries.
What?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, watermelon is also a berry.
That's a big berry.
That's sort of an agricultural thing, not like my specialty, but yes, raspberries are not berries, bananas are. That's sort of a technical weirdness. I love cranberries. That's one of my favorites, by the way. Annika says berries are fruit with internal seeds. So yes, tomatoes are berries. Tomatoes not only are fruit, they are berries. Yeah, so that's why I say, since tomatoes are fruit, and like peppers are fruits, that means that salsa is a fruit salad.
Is ketchup a jam? No. Oh my god. I have to rethink this.
Yes, they would be sort of like a fruit puree. Yeah. That's the taxonomy for plants. What else can we do, though? We talked about nutrition. Well, we also need to increase our physical activity. We need to reduce our stress levels, which, oh my god, that's going to be hard, right? We need to get better sleep, which, of course, you can go watch our sleep health lesson. Or, in fact, I might just play the 2-minute version I did. We need to reduce our drinking, and we need to not smoke. For physical activity, how much should we get? Well, we recommend 150 minutes a week of moderate physical activity and 75 minutes a week of vigorous physical activity. How can you get those amounts? How can you reach those levels? Well, a brisk walk can be enough to get you your moderate level. Go for a casual bike ride, and that's moderate physical activity. Let me see here, 7 days, 150 minutes, 12 minutes a day? Can get you your moderate physical activity. It does not take too much. You can just go for a walk, like May there on the screen. For vigorous physical activity, obviously jogging, cycling, doing some kind of sport or resistance training, and that's 75 minutes over 7 days. 10 minutes. Yeah, or like, I would be like 18, 20 minutes for moderate and 10 for vigorous. Mortham, yes, so no smoke. Edibles, we do have a cannabis lesson, and I do say that if that's a choice you want to make, I'm not going to stand in your way. You can do so in moderation and still be healthy. But walking and bike rides can be enough to give yourself that physical activity you need, especially if you can get it outdoors. Remember, we talked about how important it is to get some activity outside for your natural light exposure. But yeah, let's do this. Since we talked about sleep, this is our 2-minute sleep lesson. This is our sleep lesson compacted into 2 minutes.
Ooh.
Oh, is this not playing? Can you not hear it? Yeah, I don't have the... I need to... I just need to add a the source, the audio source. I think I have, 37 different audio sources on here right now. Oh, that should do
Gotta
it.
pick the one.
It's got to get the right one. Hey, you, stop scrolling. Fix your sleep. I know you're not getting enough sleep, or enough good sleep, especially if you're a content creator. Sleep affects literally every aspect of your physical and mental health and well-being. In the short term, it slashes your memory, cognition, and leads to poor judgment. In the long term, it leads to anxiety, depression, diabetes, heart attack, and all-cause mortality risk. It's a public health crisis. We could spend hours talking about why and how sleep works, and we have. But let's cut to the chase and the steps that you can take right now to improve your sleep that we went over in our sleep health lesson. So don't wait. Number 1, be consistent. Set a schedule right now. Block off the time that you are going to set aside each day for sleep. Train your body and brain that this is the time for sleep. Number 2, create a ritual. Your pre-sleep ritual is 20 to 30 minutes of transitioning yourself to sleep mode. Wash your face, brush your teeth, brush your hair, take a few minutes to stretch out and a few minutes to read quietly, or jot down your final thoughts for the evening in a journal. Cue your body and brain to know that this is the time to get ready to sleep. Number 3, create a sleep space. Commit to using your bed and the surrounding area just for sleep. It's not a dining room, an office, or an arcade. Declutter, keep your sheets, pillows, and blankets clean, and keep it dark, cool, quiet, and comfortable. And train your body and brain that this is the place for sleep. Number 4, decide how you're going to get some movement each day. Getting 30 minutes of moderate physical activity each day, you're 55% less likely to experience insomnia, especially if you can get outdoors and get some natural sunlight during that time. And lastly, you knew this was coming. Put the phone away. Put the phone away. Put the phone away. Set aside your devices for that half-hour ritual and don't pick it back up again until it's time to wake up. Not only does device use inhibit natural melatonin, dysregulating hormones and interfering with your sleep cycle, but the content itself is keeping your brain agitated, aroused, and anxious during the most critical stage of the transition to sleep. So, turn it off. Use something else as an alarm, or turn off its connection. But however you do it, don't use your phone if possible for at least 30 minutes before bed. Your sleep quality can make or break your mood, health, and performance in work, school, and life. And it can be the difference between streamer burnout and making it through. Take it seriously. You deserve it. My name is Mr. Aegis, your health teacher VTuber. Tune in weekly for health and wellness lessons and variety gaming. And with that, class dismissed. Yes, that is our shortened 2-minute version of the full sleep lesson that we give. Use those 4 tips. Be consistent. Create a pre-bed ritual. Use your sleep space just for sleep. And put your phone away. For the other aspects, though, you can see our lessons on smoking, vaping, on alcohol, and stress and overstimulation. We have a full playlist of our previous lessons there. Don't be like May. Don't always be stressed out. It's bad for your health. Of course, it's not always easy. It's not always easy to work all these things into our budget and into our limited amount of time in the world. You can make it more likely. You can make it more possible. Convenience always makes or breaks a habit, right? If it's inconvenient, you're going to be less likely to go out of your way to make it happen. There's an old saying, proper planning prevents poor performance. So let's plan. Yes, it's okay to have canned food or frozen food. If vegetables are expensive, and they might be right now, especially in the winter when they're out of season, canned fruit and vegetable is okay. Look for things that are no or low sugar. If you're getting canned fruit, look for the packed in water or low sugar added, and no and low sodium. Cooking things in batches. Cooking large amounts of food in a crock pot and then storing them over the week. Finding affordable sources of protein, like bulk beans. I like to get a big couple pound bag of black beans and keep that on hand. I would say eggs, but hey, that's not in our budget right now anymore.
Oof.
Fish, obviously. Mortham asks if we live in a studio apartment, if we lack space, how do we separate? You can do that separation mentally, in that sleep space. Think about it in the two modes. At this time, at this particular time at night, my space is converted to just our sleep space. if you do have to do your work and your play in and around the bed area, have that mental separation, or use a sheet to just cover off the bed part. It can be more challenging, but then you can focus more on the other aspects if necessary. Focus more on the ritual aspect, which is proven to be very powerful for all kinds of habit making. I like to stretch out a little bit. I brush my hair, my beautiful long hair. I brush my teeth. I should be journaling more, but you also need to put the phone away. That's maybe the biggest one that I hope people take away from this. That blue light is killing your sleep, and the scrolling of Twitter is, well, killing society, but we'll get into that some other day. And you can improve the way that we snack. We talked a lot about nuts, and they seem to show up in a lot of those things that we mentioned for nutrition because they're great. Nuts and yogurt, DIY trail mix. But let's put it all together, class. Let's put it all together and think about a day. Think about a day in the life. What might a day look like if we were focused on improving our cholesterol? What might we say have for breakfast or work in physical activity? This is your quiz for today. What might we have for breakfast? If we wanted to have a good breakfast meal that would be good for our cholesterol levels and still be, taste good and not too much of a challenge to make. Ivy says a fruit and oatmeal breakfast. Have some oatmeal, throw some fruit in there. I think that's a pretty good idea. So that's one breakfast we could have. Oatmeal and fruit on it.
Sometimes I default to a protein shake in the morning, especially if I'm in a rush to get to the clinic.
Yeah, protein shake, very convenient, fast. And that oatmeal with fruit, that's high fiber plus fruit. And you can do that, from a can. You don't need to, if it's out of season or expensive right there. Oatmeal with berries, Mortham says, fantastic. We love our berries. Annika, whole grain cereal and banana. Yeah. My favorite whole grain cereal is grape nuts, which I know people think, oh, that's an old person for cereal. I like it.
It tastes good, guys.
It does. I actually will often eat a peanut butter and banana sandwich for breakfast because it's got, it's nuts for nut spread, a whole grain bread, and banana. Some pretty good breakfast options. Yogurt. And then what are we going to have for lunch? That might be good for... What do we have for lunch that might be good for our cholesterol needs?
I know I've been meal prepping. Actually, my wife has been meal prepping a whole lot. So for us, we tend to plan ahead and cook our meals. So this week it was turkey meatloaf.
Ooh, turkey meatloaf. I actually really like turkey stuff because at my local grocery store, it's actually ground turkey is a lot cheaper than the ground beef. So,
Really?
Hey, I'll just get these $1.99 packs for 1 pound of ground turkey, and I'll make that instead of ground beef in whatever recipe I'm doing. So yeah, sometimes the healthier thing is actually cheaper. Oh, and turkey meatloaf. I like to take a slice of meatloaf and make a sandwich out of it. Put a little cheese on there.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I remember making sliders off a meatloaf slab once.
Nice. Annika also says chicken stir fry. Very good veggies in there, peppers and stuff, I imagine. A chicken stirred these fries? Hey, Ivy, cold cut sandwiches, they really the only thing there is that, a cold cut is a processed meat, but you can still get a low fat turkey deli meat. Yeah, my dad jokes. Well, humor is good for you. Humor is good for your heart. Hey, a cholesterol. A patient went to the doctor to check on his cholesterol levels. Doctor says, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is your cholesterol has stayed the same. Bad news is that the research findings have changed.
That's actually really good.
Yeah. One time my old hippie uncle said that he had to quit smoking weed I said, well, why? He said, yeah, my cholesterol's too high. You know what part of the country has the lowest cholesterol levels?
Which ones?
Staten Island. Oh, yeah. But hey, bacon.
Man, hurry me here.
I deserve those dodgeballs, yeah. But hey, processed meats are not always bad. Bacon has a special place in my heart. It's called cholesterol.
Mm.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted again. Up for It Walk is playing. Our favorite song, our favorite redeem.
Good redeem.
Other Pokemon can fly majestically through the sky, but I can walk. They can walk. Thank you for the redeem. So we've had our breakfast before work or school. We've had our lunch. What are we going to do to get some physical activity during the day? How are we going to get some PA? Something that might be convenient, that we can easily work into our limited amount of time, since we're always so in a hurry.
So one tactic I find myself doing is taking a bit of a ways from where I work and taking a few minutes to walk.
Parking farther and walking more. Very good. Yeah, I got sort of forced into that because at campus, there's no parking anywhere, and you would have to park miles away. But, you know, it is a walkable city, so I'm happy enough about that. Annika, knock knock, who's there? HIPAA who? Sorry, I can't tell you that information. Very good, very good. Thank you for not giving away my medical history and health information to some AI, to a government agency that is feeding it all into a computer right now as we speak. Anyway, Anomalisa Keys mentions dance cardio. Yeah, dance cardio. Mm-hmm. One of the things in a PE class that I was teaching last semester, we brought in some Xbox Connects and we did Just Dance. We played Just Dance, and the kids loved it.
I miss Just Dance when my back was injured. I remember doing all that in front of the living room. It was actually really cool. I actually learned how to dance pretty decently from that game.
I think it was great. Yeah, I think the extra gaming that hopefully we will be talking about in a lesson coming up over the next month is great. Both young people and old people, they love it. I give the Nintendo Switch or the Wii controls to a senior at a senior facility, and they're doing the boxing and they're getting into it. Yeah, extra gaming is great. Annika also says taking the stairs instead of the elevator if possible. Yeah, stairs over elevator. All excellent options. And those are ways, like the parking farther and walking and taking the stairs over the elevator. That's not even adding anything extra into your day. That's just making a slight change into how you're going about that normal day.
Mm-hmm. Make it part of your day.
Making it part of your day. Hey, if you want to, as your pre-bed ritual, do a little yoga to help get you relaxed. Hey, yoga's a little bit of physical activity. It's also great for your stress levels. All right, so we've had breakfast and lunch. We've had a little physical activity during the day. And hey, if you're walking outside to get to work or school because you parked farther, you're also doing it outside, which is great. Talked in our outdoor activity lesson how important it is to get outside. So now what are we going to have for dinner? What are we going to have for dinner that might be a good option?
What does sound good for dinner now? You're actually making me hungry. Let's see. Something very simple and very cheap to get actually is tofu. Believe it or not.
Tofu.
Yeah.
Tofu, yeah,
if you know how to cook it right.
soy is really good for you too. I will just address right here now the sort of mythos about soy as estrogenic, or whatever the term is. It's not true. Let's be perfectly clear about that. If it did work, if it did have a noted like clinical increase in estrogen levels, you know, like there are weird men out there who think, I don't want to eat soy, or calling things soy. If that worked, it would be a life changer for women going through menopause. Like, they would be just eating a lot of soy and tofu and soybeans and stuff to help with hormone levels.
I think the trans community would be all on top of that.
Right? And like, we can look at populations that eat a lot of soy and tofu. There are no notable differences in the testosterone or estrogen levels between countries, say in East Asia, that eat a lot of soy versus countries that don't. Like, there's just not a difference. We would see it. Yeah. So if it worked like that, there would be people who would be all soyed up. But yeah, tofu. Make some tofu sandwiches if you want for dinner. Stir-fried tofu. Tofu burgers.
My favorite is making some tofu stew. This Korean tofu stew. Yeah, it's so you just throw in a block, put in the soup mix, and then you can add in whatever you want. So I usually do like mushrooms, some veggies, some dumplings, and that's a good hearty meal that can last you for quite a while.
Absolutely. Let's see, let's do one more. I like to make shredded chicken in a big crock pot, because that's one of those, making foods in batches things.
Oh yeah.
If I just make a bunch of shredded chicken, then I can put it into whatever I want. I can put it into a tortilla and make a sandwich wrap with some lettuce and tomatoes in there. Or I can put it on top of ramen and have chicken in the ramen. It's a low-fat meat with a soup. You can throw it into regular canned soup and make too many of those canned soups, they don't have enough actual like meat in there. So yeah,
hey, that's good.
A big crock pot full of shredded chicken is very versatile. But of course, we should have a snack available throughout the day in case we get hungry. We have a little blood sugar fall. What kind of a snack should we have available on us, class?
I, for one, am a big proponent of making sure you have some trail mix on you.
Mix.
Yeah, I love trail mix. It gets me through the day.
Mix, yes, Dragon. I love getting a big bag of cranberries because for some reason, those are cheaper than most other dried fruits that I've found for bulk options. I'll get like a 5-pound bag of dried cranberries from Amazon, and it'll be cheaper than like a 2-pound bag of like regular mixed dried fruit. And cranberries are awesome. And then mix that with a big bag of dried almonds, roasted almonds. There's at least a beginning of a trail mix.
I'm more of a walnut and pecan kind of guy.
And walnuts are, I think the research is that that's really good for brain health. And not just because they look like little brains. Mortham says your go-to lunch at work is ramen with frozen veggies and sardines. Hey, that's pretty good. Sardines, like I said,
pretty good.
It's a great fish, a lot of omega-3s. You know what? The frozen veggies, nothing wrong with that. Veggies are expensive right now at the grocery store. Out of season. There's production line issues, shipping issues. But good to have options. Sardines and crackers, Ivy says. Yeah, sardines are healthy. That always reminds me of the movie The Burbs, though, which I bring that movie up all the time and nobody else has ever seen it. With Tom Hanks. Because there's a character in there that eats sardines on crackers. But nobody ever gets my references. I feel like I'm Mystery Science Theater 3000 sometimes. But
I do have to add a caveat with the ramen. If it's not fresh ramen, like say from restaurants, or like say ramen noodles that you can get from that you can cook yourself or boil up, just be wary. So say you get cup ramen or those ramen packs you see at the grocery store. Those can be pretty high in salt, so please be aware of how much of the soup mix and seasoning you put in. So you might want to consider watering it down.
Yes, those are very high sodium, a lot of monosodium glutamate. And you know what? You can use the half pack and make your own seasoning. You can put your own seasonings in there. Pepper and, garlic or shallots or whatever. Other seasoning you can put in there that don't have sodium. You don't necessarily need salt to season things.
Nope.
I like Louisiana hot sauce on pretty much everything. And I know I said earlier I have a baby mouth. That's like the one spicy thing I like. I can't eat the Takis. I would put it in my ramen, yes. I would throw some of my shredded chicken on the ramen, maybe some hot sauce.
Louisiana hot sauce in ramen. I'm not sure if you've committed a cardinal sin against ramen, but
I mean, maybe if it was
but I'm not one to judge because I should probably try it out before saying anything.
Maybe if I just did sriracha, that would be better.
Sriracha's a little less offensive, I guess, but ramen purists are going to be would go all over you for putting Louisiana hot sauce.
Go over like a lead balloon. But that's a great job, class. You did a great job with great ideas on things that we can do. So yeah, we did a great one-day plan of the things that we would eat, what we would avoid. But some closing thoughts. Thinking about your cholesterol now might save you a lot of trouble later in life. Just like when we did our summer health lesson and I showed that picture of the truck driver who didn't wear sunscreen, and on the left side of his face, the side of the body that faces the outdoors, faces the window, looked about 15, 20 years older than the other side. Think about the long term. These small steps that you can take today that can make a huge difference in your quality of life later on. And it affects all kinds of aspects of your health and wellness, not just your cardiovascular health, but as Riko touched on a lot, things like diabetes, leading to brain health issues later on. Make some small changes. You don't have to do everything that we talked about. When we do lessons, people maybe feel like, I gotta make all these changes in my life, or like the sleep health, they gotta do all of those steps. Just try one. At least incorporate one change in your life, one small change that can add up over time. Making a 1% change today and doing it every day is infinitely better than making 0% change. It is a gift to your future self, and you deserve it, whether you think so or not. So that is your homework. Try to make at least one dietary change, and it can just be a change to your normal breakfast. It can be a change to your snack. And make one change to your lifestyle. It can be reducing smoking. It can be cutting down on drinking a little bit, be parking a little bit farther away and walking more. And then report back at our next class next week. And we'll talk more about it. We'll see how you felt. Next week's lesson, actually, is our Valentine's Day lesson. We'll have that on Thursday, the day before Valentine's Day. And I will be talking about the myth of the love languages. That very popular pop psychology subject, the love language. I will be going into the research of, does it actually work? Do people actually have a love language? And what might be better relationship communication methods that people can use. I go a little bit in depth into research and break down this long-standing sort of myth of the love language. And I'm pretty interested to see what people's reaction is to that one. But before we go, obviously we need to turn it back to you all. If you have any questions or additional comments, feedback about the lesson, suggestions, maybe things that we didn't touch on that we should touch on next time that we do this lesson, or ideas that you have for future lessons. Oh yes, Annika, yeah. Open lines of communication, talking about whether or not something actually made you feel appreciated or not. Yeah. Mew has a question, please, by all means. Yeah, I will be talking about the Gottman method. Dr. Gottman is a famous relationship psychologist that had what I think is a much better method for relationship communication than the love languages. Are there healthy tea recommendations? Oh my gosh, if you want healthy tea recommendations, I wonder if I can quickly grab my caffeine lesson where I talked about tea. I will just say yes. Pretty much any kind of tea that you're not adding a lot of sugar or milks to. Green tea is sort of the classic fallback because it is very high in antioxidants. I think the only things you really need to be concerned of when you're picking a tea is the caffeine level and possibly the tannins for staining teeth. Something to be aware of. And we did a dental health lesson too, so don't worry. If you want to talk about dental health and getting your teeth a little bit whiter, we'll talk about that too sometime. Peppermint tea, Ivy says, is goated. Yeah, a lot of herbal teas can be very good. I think we mentioned lavender and chamomile tea. There is some evidence that those are actually beneficial in sleep. I know melatonin is the popular thing people take, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But I would just say, if tea for sleep is a thing, avoid valerian. Not because it's necessarily bad, but because there's a percent of the population where valerian does the opposite. It can actually make you really tired but unable to fall asleep. Whoa. It's sort of like that thing where to some people cilantro tastes like soap. It's just a genetic thing where it's some segment of the population, it just has the negative effect. But yeah. Oh yeah, uncaffeinated tea, Annika. That's fantastic. And we also, there's nothing inherently wrong with caffeine, but we are as a society very dependent on it. I find it somewhat troubling, the ubiquity of the sort of, I can't start my day without my coffee. Don't talk to me until I've had my coffee. That sounds like a problem. That seems like an issue you might want to address.
Yeah, it kind of is. I actually used to be a bad caffeine addict back in the day. As you can guess from, my kind of work.
Yes.
Sometimes, one cup isn't enough. And unfortunately, I developed a really bad habit to the point where I actually developed hypertension because of it.
It's a very powerful stimulant. It's like nicotine in that we don't really attribute enough potency to it. But it's, again, nothing inherently wrong with it. And there's some research suggesting that up to 2 cups a day, 2 servings of coffee or caffeine a day can have actual health benefits, especially if it is a unsweetened coffee or tea. You're getting some antioxidants. Black coffee has some B vitamins. If you're not getting too much caffeine, I think the problem is that someone will get like an extra large Starbucks coffee and be like, oh, I only had 1 cup. Like, no, that's the equivalent of like 6 cups. That's a lot of caffeine, and then you put mocha and caramel and sugar and whipped cream on it, and it's like 2,000 calories.
Yeah, you're basically drinking a dessert.
Mayonnaise is not an instrument, no. Mayonnaise is a food. I think mayonnaise prices will be going up, though, because of the egg prices. But that's our lesson. That's all I have for you. If you don't have any additional questions or comments, I do want to thank you for completing this. Here's your certificate of completion, as we always give out for all of our lessons. If you want, I can put your name on this and give you our digital copy in the Discord, which you can hop into here in the link right now in the chat. The link to all of our previous lessons, our VODs, is here, and this lesson will be in there by tomorrow. I'll get that added there. You can follow me on the socials there. And also follow Riko Siempre. It's twitch.tv/Riko Siempre. It's just the name, one word.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay,
and you can also follow me on Blue Sky, on Twitter, and I also have my own YouTube channel where I produce health PSAs and shorts.
And we love to see more health education, health promotion. I think it improves health equity, gives more access to health information. And one of the health education standards is teaching people how to access valid and reliable health information, which can be a challenge because there is so much misinformation out there. So many influencers with so much to say and so little expertise. So if you can do yourself a favor, find people who have legitimate health expertise and learn how to do research or read research, and not just the do your own research of looking something up on ChatGPT. But that's the lesson that I have for you. And I want to thank our special guest, Riko Siempre, for joining us and giving us a fantastic perspective that added a lot to our lesson.
Yeah, I was very happy to come aboard. I'd totally love to come back again sometime if you let me.
I would be happy to have you. And I think there are definitely plenty of topics that we can talk about together. But with that, let's take our break. And thank you so much for attending this class. Thank you so much for watching this lesson. I hope you learned something useful and that you can apply it to improve your quality of life. If you liked what you saw, make sure to follow the channel and follow us on Twitch so you can join our lessons and games live. On the screen, you'll see links to our channel and our playlist of other lessons. Thank you again for watching and for supporting independent streaming and educational content. I hope to see you next time. Class dismissed.